March 17, 1942, in the North Atlantic. A wail like an alarm tore through the corroded rigging of a British freighter, cutting through fog dense enough to chew. Below the surface, unseen, waited the most lethal hunters of the Second World War, Germany's U-boats. In that single month, 75 Allied vessels were destroyed, usually with no warning, hit by torpedoes, blown apart, vanished into the frigid, dark quiet of the ocean. The Allies were hemorrhaging ships and resources at an alarming pace. Every convoy crossing was a high-stakes bet, but amidst the turmoil, a solution emerged from the least probable location: a ship's kitchen. Not an admiral, not an engineer, but a ship's cook, equipped not with munitions, but with grease, foil, and a keen observational skill. How could a man preparing meals devise a concept that would confuse German U-boats, deceive their hydrophones, and rescue countless sailors? It seems preposterous. It ought to have been impossible. Nevertheless, contrary to all logic, it worked. The following account was hidden in maritime archives, only declassified many years post-war. This isn't folklore. This isn't cinematic fiction. It is factual. And the further you delve into the narrative, the more incredible it becomes. Because the cook's concept did more than conceal vessels. It ignited a change in the understanding of camouflage, misdirection, and sea combat strategy. To grasp the revolutionary nature of the cook's invention, one must first recognize the adversary he faced. In WA, the German U-boats, or Unterseeboote, represented more than danger. They were a terror. These streamlined, quiet hunters stalked the Atlantic, employing wolf pack strategies to trap Allied convoys in the dark. Multiple submarines cooperated, encircling sluggish cargo ships like predators before attacking with vicious synchronization. Outfitted with sophisticated hydrophones, sonar, and periscopes, U-boat commanders could target acoustic profiles and outlines from great distances. The convoys, frequently lightly defended and dependent on quantity, were easy targets. Their routes were foreseeable, their protection minimal, and their exposure after dark, particularly in moonlight, was a fatal weakness. By the middle of 1941, Britain confronted a severe emergency. Provisions from America and Canada, rations, fuel, munitions, medical aid, were failing to arrive in Britain in the necessary amounts. The attrition was intolerable. Churchill himself confessed, "The only thing that ever really frightened me during the war was the U-boat peril." Maritime planners attempted all solutions: depth charges, sonar pulses, destroyer escorts, erratic zigzag courses, yet nothing markedly lowered the shocking rate of loss. Despite minor technological gains, U-boat discovery often occurred too late. The moment a periscope locked onto a ship's form, the end was near. Then, on a specific British merchant ship, the SS Empire Belle, an individual named James Crum, a cook's assistant, started observing an oddity during his late-night duties. Crum held no rank. He possessed no education in physics or optics. Raised in Yorkshire, he passed his adulthood preparing food for sailors and longshoremen, and enlisted in the merchant navy due to poverty, not patriotic fervor. His duty: prepare food, scrub pans, and try not to be sunk. Yet James held a peculiar fixation on light. He had worked as a stagehand in a small Hull theater prior to the war, seeing how illumination could warp features, eliminate shadows, or blend scenery into the background. He observed light's ability to deceive vision, particularly in mist or faint light. One dark night, as the vessel moved quietly through a channel notorious for U-boat activity, James saw that specific grease patches on the deck mirrored strange light formations. The patches gleamed and fractured the vessel's sharp silhouette. They rendered it, oddly, harder to see. This sparked a thought. What if, rather than attempting total concealment, you misled the attacker into perceiving something different? Not vanishing, but diverting. The following day, Crum approached the chief mate, suggesting a plan so bizarre it was almost comical. Employing reflective kitchen foil and whale blubber to generate light anomalies on the ship's superstructure, he advised coating specific areas with a semi-gloss paint derived from lard and ash while affixing pie pans and crumpled foil fragments at odd angles near the funnel and bridge. The objective? To fracture the ship's outline, to make it glitter like an illusion, not to disappear, but to look distorted, ephemeral. A form a periscope operator might doubt, a shape failing to match the precise silhouettes of Allied freighters printed in U-boat aiming guides. He was mocked, naturally. An officer allegedly dismissed it as mad theater rubbish. Yet Crum insisted. On a particularly still evening, the captain allowed him a limited trial. Only the bridge. That night, while the convoy navigated perilous seas near the Iceland Gap, Crum's application glittered oddly under the moon. A few sailors noted it seemed molten or warped, like a heat shimmer. The following day, Admiralty intelligence passed on a peculiar detail. A German transmission intercepted nearby spoke of visual confusion and possible decoys. The U-boat had spotted the convoy, yet launched no attack. A fluke? Perhaps. But the captain permitted Crum to widen his experiment. During subsequent trips, Crum perfected the approach. He began applying soot and ash designs to mimic false shadows, positioning foil at angles to catch and disperse moonlight erratically. The outcome was a low-tech dazzle effect. It resembled the well-known dazzle camouflage of WWI, yet was engineered for darkness, not daylight. Crum's strategy interfered with the U-boat observer's assessment of velocity, heading, and scale. After dark, U-boat commanders depended greatly on rapid evaluations via periscope. A warped image could make them misjudge range or completely mistake the ship's identity, and it was effective. By late 1942, 4 or more vessels in Crum's convoy were equipped with what the men humorously dubbed ghosting grease. Those specific ships were never struck, though U-boat activity was verified nearby. Vessels flanking them were hit. In time, news traveled. Royal Navy specialists recorded the method, classifying it as field distortion pattern, improvised. Crum never received formal credit, yet archives today connect the initial prototype to the SS Empire Belle and its kitchen staff. Modern historians hypothesize Crum's tactic succeeded due to 3 factors. 1, it altered visual identification. At night, U-boat commanders had mere seconds to evaluate targets before submerging or surfacing. The skewed light disrupted that judgment window. 2, it hampered shape tracking. Numerous U-boat torpedoes utilized gyroscopic aiming reliant on vessel length and bearing. If the ship's outline was distorted, the targeting information failed. 3, it caused cognitive hesitation. The human mind, when facing an unknown form in a known setting, pauses. That hesitation was occasionally sufficient for the convoy to slip by unseen, or for an escort ship to retaliate. In contrast to active sonar or radar interference, Crum's technique transmitted nothing. It was passive misdirection, inexpensive, silent, and wonderfully simple. Naturally, not all vessels could apply it. Climate, vessel type, and the chain of command were all factors. However, field reports from early 1943 indicated a 17% reduction in successful torpedo strikes against ships employing distortion methods, a small advantage. Yet in conflict, small advantages determine survival. Post-war, Crum went back to Yorkshire, resuming a quiet civilian existence. He was never awarded a medal or given public acclaim. For many years, his input stayed hidden in classified documents. Only in 1981, when a maritime historian found references to optical deflection tactics originating on merchant ships, did the account re-emerge. The BBC conducted an interview with Crum, who was then in his 60s. He minimized his contribution, stating, "I just saw a shimmer and thought, maybe Jerry will too." His technique is now analyzed as an early example of passive signature reduction, a core principle in contemporary stealth technology. The concept that concealment isn't always about vanishing, but about deflection. What renders this account extraordinary is not merely the invention, but its origin. A cook, someone who diced vegetables and cleaned pots, silently observing moonlight warp on steel. He lacked a laboratory, he lacked authority, but he possessed sharp eyes and intuition. Conflict is frequently recounted from the perspective of generals and politicians, yet history sometimes shifts because an individual on the lower decks ventures to perceive things differently. And here is the twist. Crumb's notion wasn't the sole strange strategy employed during the conflict. In 1944, British intelligence camouflaged live cows to resemble road networks from above, baffling Luftwaffe pilots. A separate unit constructed a decoy harbor using mirrors and plywood. An American unit employed bagpipes to simulate troop movements via echo chambers in Sicily. Crumb's ruse? It fits within that gallery of odd brilliance. So, the next time you hear of radar and sonar, recall that occasionally lard, foil, and a cook's insight are what truly matter. If you found this account as astonishing as we did, please hit that like button. Subscribe for additional hidden gems from history, as the most incredible tales are often those we have forgotten. And let us know in the comments. Does Crumb deserve a medal at last? And be watching our next installment. Suffice to say, it concerns pigeons and one of Europe's most effective espionage rings. Stay curious.